Hello, everybody, and happy New Year to all of you guys and everybody out there watching and listening. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Tony.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, let's hope it's a better one than 2021. I mean, I'm sure people out there have had some. For some people, 2021 was probably a great year. I wasn't one of them. I don't know about you guys.
Well, Brian and I were just talking about this prior to starting the recording, is that, everybody said, well, 2020 is really bad. So, gosh, I guess it sets you up to be hopeful about 2021. And, 2021 was also bad. So I guess don't keep hope alive. I'm not quite sure what the message was there, but definitely it could always get worse, I guess, is the theme of the day. So, but yes, hopefully this year we'll be pulling out, that things will be looking better. Get-go. Hopefully inflation will eventually get in line, and they'll get supply chain things figured out, and maybe we won't have to worry about COVID as much. Who knows? So we're right in the midst of a big surge at this point. So it'll be interesting looking back on this. Hopefully this won't be as bad as they're predicting, but it sounds like it's the first time a lot of people that I know firsthand are getting it, actually. So this is actually spreading a lot closer to home. Fortunately, nobody is very ill that I know to me, but yeah, it's definitely getting much closer this time around than it has in the past waves of it.
It's the new normal, Joe.
Yeah, well, I've done all I can, so I'm, you know, I'm looking forward for spring. See, I'm a weird guy, so like, all right, technically, okay, this is how goofy I think. So for me, truly, I love the month of April because that's like full blown spring, and traditionally April 1st thereabouts is the opening day for Major League Baseball, and summer's right around the corner. But because of the way I think, which is like I'm always trying to be prepared, I look forward to March 1st because now that gives me like 30 days of a countdown. Or 31 days in March, I guess, as a countdown to spring. And for the most part, March is fairly okay weather. Sometimes we have the first couple of weeks are pretty bad, but so I just want to get us through January and February, and bring on March. That's what I'm looking for. Let's march towards March.
Well, speaking of countdown, we should probably do some of our plugs first before we go any further on today's show. So speaking of counting down, as the countdown is on for the Tri-C program, this is it, right? The last month. So
1st of January.
that's right. So if you're looking to lock in that pricing, this is your time to act. This is, a great opportunity. It's really the best pricing option for you. But it's kind of, it's something that it's not sustainable. So it's something that we have to kind of bring to an end. It's not affordable to keep that kind of pricing range up. But really, it gives you all of Tony's videos right away on day one when you pay up. And then you and a training partner basically have lifetime access, to come out and train with Tony and also do remote video learning. So it's really the complete package and the best way that you can help support Tony too. So if you care about catch wrestling and what Tony teaches, it's a great thing that you can do for him, but it's the best for yourself. Honestly, lock this pricing in. And that's the reason why we have to kind of bring it to an end, because it's not something that, it's not scalable. You can only have so many people. So there will be something new, in the future, but it won't be at this pricing. So better jump on it now.
It won't be as complete or anything like, it won't be like lifetime training or anything.
Right. That's, yeah, something maybe in the terms of years or whatever, or,
We'll figure it out.
But yeah, and if, obviously not everybody can do that, but at a minimum, everybody listening, who's enjoyed this podcast or who's enjoyed the free content we provide on the YouTube channel, can join up on our membership, monthly membership. There's two levels of that. There's the $10 a month, which gets you access to additional video content. We put that out on a regular basis. Every monthly, you'll get some new content stuff that is not, it's not a rehash of before. It's new stuff that we film. Usually, Brian and I will come out to Tony's and we'll work through some techniques, and we'll share that with the members. So that's some unique content you can get there. If you can't do that, at a minimum, you can at least join the $5 a month, kind of like a Patreon model, saying thank you for providing this content and help supporting us. Like I said, all those who have joined, we appreciate you doing it. It's acknowledged. Thank you for doing that. And of course, obviously, there's all kinds of other levels of training and video products on Tony's website, catchrussell.com. Check that out. We also like to plug our schools of our friends, people who supported us and who train with us. There's Jason Bender's school, Bender Martial Arts and Fitness, up on the north side, in the northeast side near Andersonville. Gi Jiu-Jitsu there, Muay Thai, striking, even judo classes. It's a great group of people there, all levels of skills, and it's a very welcoming environment. So highly recommend that. If you're looking for no gi or more wrestling oriented submission styles on the north side of Chicago, there's 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu with our good friend Josh Bassini, another great guy, high level athlete. Highly recommend that. And of course, the Akai Training Center, also on the north side. Obviously, we're north siders, so you hear a lot of those schools. But you can probably get the most authentic Muay Thai training you can in the Midwest. Rick Solo has just had a lifetime commitment to learning the Thai arts and traveling there, and it's been supporting it. And so you couldn't get a better coach if that's what you're interested in. So I think that runs us through all of it. So back to you, Tony.
Yeah, and we were lucky to have Josh, Jason, and Rick as guests in 2021, and certainly would like to have them all back again in 2022. We had a lot of nice people on the show. When you think about it, Jason Godsey, Shoni Carter, we had a law enforcement perspective with Nico's brother, and others, Paul Dodds and everything. We had so many great guests. We want to continue that. We want to make sure that in 2022 we can get some new people on there as well and bring back some of our friends. So yeah, let's look forward to making 2022 a happening year here.
Absolutely. And Tony, I don't know if you heard this, but it's come full circle because Brian was actually our first guest of 2021. Like almost to the day. It was January 3rd that we published that episode. And so we welcome.
Happy anniversary, Brian.
Thank you so much. Do I get a gift then? Where's my anniversary present? My wife expects
one of these. Punch in the
hey,
nose.
take a knuckle sandwich.
Yeah, knuckle sandwich. There you go. I'll buy you lunch. It's just, it's really, people don't get it though. It's, if you're not into this, because even when we started this, I thought we had a handle on things. We don't. Sometimes it's hard. It's hard to get everybody's schedule, together. It really is. It's difficult sometimes, especially with like Russell Stutley or Paul Dodds, who are in different parts of the world, different time zones. It really becomes challenging. And then certain days, see, we normally film on Sundays. Like right now we're filming Sunday mornings here. Some days we have to change that. We film during the week or whatever. So it's difficult to coordinate even amongst ourselves. It's hard. So it can be challenging.
Yeah, and I will say, hats off to you gentlemen for keeping this going all this time. If you look at YouTube or iTunes or anywhere you can get podcasts, it's literally a graveyard of podcasts that were launched for 6 months, maybe a year, and they fell off for whatever reasons. There's individual reasons behind that, but it's obviously speaks to the idea that I feel that, it does take a commitment and can be challenging, especially over a period of time. So yeah, kudos to you to keeping it going. And of course, that's where the public really should, any of the fans can step in and assist. be a contributing.
Thanks. I can't do it without you guys, or I suppose technically you could, but why would I, but yeah, no, it's just great. It's just, it's been great to be with you guys for sure.
And, I was thinking about the past year and just looking at our guests and things, and it is interesting, even being involved in this. I mean, having conversations with people that I might not have, at a deeper level, and just interesting, different perspectives on their path to getting to where they're at. Some people like Jason Godwise, or actually my friend Octavio, when they approached grappling, it just took to them naturally. Even if they didn't have good training, they just kind of threw themselves into it and were successful. I think Octavio said he didn't know he wasn't supposed to be beating these guys. He'd go up against guys who were better rated than him, and he would surprise them. He was the underdog, and he just took to it naturally. And then we had people like Blaine who said, it wasn't in his family. No one grappled before. It's just that someone had, stuffed him, in a friend's basement at one point, messing around. And he's like, I'm going to be better at this. And he spent the first couple of years just losing, just getting pinned, losing. And his parents were like, you might want to think of something else. That was the message. You're like, have you considered painting, or whatever it was that they came to him. But it was just like, but no, he just kept at it, and eventually the corner turned. So it is interesting to see, at least for me coming at it kind of, I'm definitely the guy who should probably be thinking about painting. It's always work for me. So it's encouraging to hear, when I meet with all these people who are so talented and so dedicated, it's interesting to hear that it doesn't always just come natural to everybody, and you get that perspective talking to different people and getting them to open up in kind of a long format and answer these questions. Yeah. And like I said, some people like Josh Bassini, I was thinking, his dad was some people like have it in their family lineage, like you said, he was just wrestling as a kid on the mat. That was playtime. So there was never a point in his life where he wasn't grappling in some fashion, and so when you see people who have achieved high levels, you kind of like, my assumption is, oh, they've probably been doing this their whole life, but that's not always true, so it is kind of cool to have these collections of different people's tales and how they got to where they're at.
Hard work, though. That's what every one of those guys, everybody has in common. I think a lot is made of this natural talent thing, and I'm not a firm believer in that. I think every person who really was ever great really put in a lot of hard work. There's just no shortcuts. Maybe, I don't know, somebody could probably prove me wrong and say, oh, here's a guy who never had a lesson in his life, but who knows? I just think it's hard work. The right work, though. You got to put in the right training and lots of it, and you'll succeed.
And definitely, I mean, one of the common threads is passion with all those guys, regardless of what their background is or whatever it is. They clung to it. Whether it was kind of given to them through their family line or something they completely sought out on their own. It was because you need it. There's no way this stuff is not easy. It's maybe the hardest pursuit someone can have, at least in the physical athletic realm, in my opinion. So to achieve in it and to make something of yourself, absolutely. All these guys showed that they had passion for it. And that drives the hard work.
Yeah, well, I think boxing was harder, actually for me, the pain, different kind of pain. Getting hit is a little different than wrestling kind of stuff. I mean, I'm talking about with no submissions, just wrestling. There's something about it, getting hit, he really messes with you, man. I'll tell you.
Yeah, Tony, I remember you always telling me that going back years that you had a.
Excuse me, gentlemen. Excuse me. Keep talking.
Go ahead. I was just recapping. Tony always had that philosophy that when there's something about a boxer or kickboxer getting punched and kneed and constantly, beat on, I mean, even in a smart training method, then there is, he always had obviously admiration for wrestling, but I can see where that comes from. And of course, they're both very intense sports. I don't have an opinion either way, especially at a high level. but it can be jarring for somebody getting punched, even if somebody who's very high level. Actually, I knew a lot of guys actually that wrestled in Division One, even All American level, that just weren't even interested in doing anything like MMA because they just simply didn't want to get hit. So that, you know, that speaks to at least that initial apprehension to somebody who's, you know, excelled at this high level one sport and just wasn't really interested in taking that kind of damage or, you know, dealing with that arena.
For sure, for sure. And I think kind of using that to segue into technique. I mean, that's why I really appreciate some of the stuff Tony's taught me boxing wise, as far as details on my stance, stressing the head movement, basically things that help minimize getting hit. You know, that you can't stress that enough, you know, especially if you're looking at this from a self-defense perspective. Because like to your point, Brian, is that there are, and if you remember some of, especially the older UFC fights, there's a lot of wrestlers who would stay so far out, you know, that they couldn't strike because they were, and they just keep shooting in. They'd shoot in and stay really far out and they'd gas themselves. You know, I think back even back to like Mark Coldman. I mean, eventually he lost because that was his only approach. And he was afraid of staying in that middle ground, you know, where you can catch something. And it makes sense. Yeah, it sucks getting hit. Absolutely. You know, and even worse, yeah, getting kneed or getting leg kicked. I mean, that's just brutal, you know, punishment. And you have to, I mean, I think you have to approach it from different dimensions, right? You have to acclimate yourself to that and kind of build up some tolerance for it. Just like in grappling, you have to build up tolerance for ripping and things like that. You don't want it to be a surprise because you might freeze from the shock of it. Or like your spirit will
Well,
almost
that's
be
the whole
broken.
point, right?
Right.
A really good rip is meant to like make someone freeze or shock. But yeah, you can obviously still, I would say, become more. You can tolerate a little more if you're training that way, for
I
sure.
don't know how long I can stay on because she's having a very, very, very bad episode upstairs there. So if I have to cut out again, I'm going to have to cut out and call 911.
Oh no.
So
Okay.
I missed some of what you said, but I do remember, I believe it was Townsend Saunders, who was an Olympic silver medalist, and I forgot who he was fighting. Famous guy, and he couldn't take him down. You know, I don't remember him scoring a takedown. Part of it was because he was shooting from too far away. Because the other guy was, it was like, what's that famous guy? He punches and my brain is fried because I'm worried about her upstairs. But you guys all know who I'm talking about. A real champion guy and MMA guy. He boxes and, you know, wrestles too. You know who I'm talking about. I just can't think of it. He's retired now. But so so Townsend was, you know, could have gotten hit and knocked out, and I think that was part of a lot of his problems. He was shooting in from too far away. But yeah, it punches and, you know, hard kicks really change you know, your strategy. You have to be more than, you can't be single dimensional. You know, but yeah, it's and in track, when I ran track, that was tough training too, believe it or not, in a completely different way. You know, throwing up all the time from the conditioning, different kind of conditioning with the sprint. Of course, they overtrained me, but I did not know that at the time. So yeah, interesting stuff. And, you know, I'd like to get other athletes' perspective on it. You know, well, you know, Blaine, for example, he was a pretty high, you know, level wrestler, and you know, we should, you know, if we have him back on again, we should focus on talking about his conditioning routine back then. You know, not now.
Tony, do you like sprints for conditioning for combat
Yes.
sports?
Yes, absolutely. Explosive. Interval, you know, sprint jog, walk if you have to. Yes, nothing, but you know, you need to know how to sprint properly. Like I've been working with Martin again, uh, via Zoom, you know, long distance or whatever you want to call it. What's it called now when you do this?
Distance learning.
Distance, yeah. And so he, you know, he was trying to follow along with boxing routines on the internet, and naturally, his form is terrible because all they care about is just doing the routine, not learning techniques, learning how to throw the punch right, learning how to move right. So when you're running, if you're going to do sprints, you got to learn how to sprint properly. It'll conserve your body. It'll help conserve your energy. It'll hopefully prevent, injuries because you're doing things wrong. And it'll make it more, I think, more enjoyable because you're going to be increasing your speed as well. You won't become a Usain Bolt, but um, do everything with the proper technique. And that's why you need a great coach. You need a coach that's solid in this stuff. So, for example, I would never teach Olympic style weightlifting, okay? Because that's not my forte. Okay, I was more of a power lifter or strongman type of guy. Never an Olympic lift. So if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I want to start incorporating Olympic lifts," that's great. But okay, let's find you somebody that can teach you the principles of it, so you're doing it properly. But yeah, sprints are very important. I think more than just running at a slow pace for 6 or 7 miles, although that has its place. But throwing in some sprints, man, is the way to go.
So
Yeah,
what,
Tony, if I could chime in on back at Triton, that was a huge thing with the conditioning is the Lucky 13 that you released on video was a huge, foundation in our training, but we used to intersperse it with I think it was 10, I want to say 10 reps, basically 10 laps to the mat. So we would sprint and then kind of like jog back and then sprint, and it was timed each time. And I remember that you're really working with us on proper form. So you're not landing and slamming your feet in the wrong position. And that what was pretty amazing is despite us going through this, severe conditioning routine over, a period of usually it took about 45 minutes start to finish, even halfway through, around the fifth or sixth time, we were actually getting faster on the sprint. And so this is 10 times in a row. And you think like we weren't slowing down, we were actually getting faster and like building speed despite, having this fatigue, which to me was always very, very fascinating because you've talked about that with boxers that like well-trained boxers that they actually start peaking like mid-fight as opposed to like, wearing themselves out like you see in other types of fights. So yeah, just to chime in on that, I do recall that being a big part of our training back in the day.
Is
Well,
that
what
an
are-
issue? Oh, sorry.
I just wondering what is like some common mistakes that people make like with their technique with sprinting.
Well, they run flat-footed. They'll land on their heels. That's the biggest thing. A sprinter, you want to run on the balls of your feet. I don't have my track shoes here, but I still have my track shoes. There's only spikes on the top, where your toes would be, right? There are no spikes anywhere else on the shoe. Okay. Uh, you want to rebound, so you want to be light when you land. Okay, when you're running, you don't want to be pounding, like boom, 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 and that's the biggest mistake that people make, that I've seen, and that induces shin splints and all sorts of other problems. Take it from me, when I was coached improperly, I ended up developing shin splints, and that's something you don't want. It's very painful. But yeah, that's probably. And then the second thing is they don't use their arms properly because your arms will help propel you. Okay, uh, people's arms are all over the place. They're wild, kind of like not a boxer, not a good boxer, but like when you fight, and you got your elbows flared out and all this crazy space, and it's no good. Same thing happens when you're running. You want to have really good form. Um, and the third biggest thing is uh, people don't relax when they run. They tense up, and you have to be relaxed. You got to, and that starts from your breathing, and not like clenching fists or being tight. You really want to be loose, really relaxed, and learning how to relax your body. Um, and that carries over to fighting too. Obviously, all of it does. You don't want to be tense. The tenser you are, the more energy you burn out or burn up. So there's a lot of it that goes involved, and by no means is that all, but Nico, those are the three things that I look for right away with somebody when they're actually running. Um, even if you see, even jogging, if you're jogging, it's the same thing. Don't pound. I mean, don't like slam down to the ground. Try to be light, because you use the earth as a trampoline in essence. You want to propel yourself forward. You don't want to be putting all your energy going to the earth. The earth is supposed to push you forward, lurching you, so you're clawing at it, and you're just scooping it, so to speak, you're not burying yourself into it. You're scooping it and like a swimmer would try to push the water behind him or herself to propel. That's what running is all about. Propelling yourself forward at hopefully at a very high rate of speed.
Tony, what about stride? What is your
That's
thoughts on
another
that?
thing. Your stride length. Yep. Everybody's stride. You want to try to maximize your stride length, especially if you're running any sort of longer distance, 100 meters or more, 200 meters or something. Your stride length is really important. I used to run in two different ways. I used to take short steps if I was just running short sprints. I played a lot of softball, so 30, softball was 30 yards, so 90 feet on the baseball diamond. And of course, the 40-yard dash, same way. But if I was running 100 meters, I would have a longer stride length. And that was something that I should have had a coach could have helped me. A really good coach could have helped me with that. I think that's probably where my biggest holdback was on my stride length. I don't think I ever got it to where I should have. Just near the end of my running track, I learned about bounding, which is these humongously exaggerated motions. And I wish I would have learned about that when I first started, because that would have helped elongate my stride and my arms as well. So in essence, you're taking really ridiculous, like overdoing the stride and overdoing your arms. You're moving your arms way over your head and way back. It looks ridiculous when you see it, but it's designed to open you up, relax you and get your stride as long as it possibly can be. I think you could probably find videos of guys doing it on the internet, track stars. But I was exposed to it like right at the end, like a week or so before it was all over for me. So I never really put enough time into it, but it really does look like a good routine to do.
As far as routines, do you like mixing up distances? So, it sounded like Brian was saying that you guys would do 10 sets of was it like 100 meters at 10, 10 reps or whatever. But I found, and this is, I said, just me experimenting around. I've got a track. Fortunately, I've got a track that's available to me. So, if I'm doing purely like explosive work, obviously the 100-meter seems like a really good distance for that, just doing that in repetition. But I've also had some success working my anaerobic. And I guess it's hard to say where the line between, I know there's a specific definition between aerobic and anaerobic, but doing distances like 400s and 800s. So like for me, like an 800-meter, and I'm just going to ballpark, it takes at least probably 3 minutes for me to make that around. So it's not a true sprint. I can't do that at 100%, but it's a sustained hard level. And so that almost has the time duration of like a round of fighting. So kind of I think what your initial point is that sometimes your track work was the hardest training you've ever done. For me, doing that 800-meter distance that I found when I'm pushing it, trying to sustain a push, as fast as I can, that 800-meter, it's probably the highest my heart level is for that duration. And so, like I said, it's not going to be as fast as so much quick twitch, but it does give me that ability to say, okay, for 3 minutes, this is my max that I can push myself, and so I can be kind of comfortable in that pocket for a round of fighting, let's say.
Well, if you have access to a track, the old thing was, you sprint the straightaways and you jog the curves, right? So that's a 400-meter track. So but if you're running an 800-meter in 3 minutes, you need to do some work, no offense, but you got to bring that time down even at your age, I would think. The human body can only sprint, I think it's, at top speed, either 250 meters or 300 meters tops. Okay. I don't think there's ever been a human being we haven't been able to sprint full blast at 400 meters yet. I could be wrong because I'm out of touch with the track world, but I don't think I am. There is some conservation of energy going on. And we're just limited by physiology. So don't don't get too scientific with it to where you're trying to, beat the laws of physics. But if the 800-meter thing works for you, it will only work for you for a short period of time because, again, if you're thinking about a 3-minute round and you're running the 800 meters in 3 minutes, you need to improve that time and start knocking it down. So let's say now all of a sudden you're running 800 meters in, I don't know, 2.5 minutes. Well, there goes your 3-minute theory, and that's the point. How much can you put out in a certain length of time? So I wouldn't look at it as the distance so much. I would look at it as that time. How far did I get in 3 minutes? Today it was 800 meters. Next time or next month it's 850 meters or something like that. That's how I would look at it. And that's what the Lucky 13 was originally designed for. To do all of those exercises, but every time, or, in theory, you're putting out more. You're doing more sprawls, or you're doing more jumping jacks, or you're doing quicker sprints, or what have you. You're putting out more energy in that same amount of time, which generally was about 55 minutes. If you factor in warm-ups and everything else, and cool downs, that's a nice 1-hour workout. So, and you guys, well, you weren't there for that, Joe, but Brian and many others we would do that all the time, and then work out afterwards. That was their warm-up, really, when you think about it. So look at it that way, Joe. Take that 3-minute round, and just see how much output you can get in those 3 minutes, and work on improving that. I do a variation of that with Martin, and already in just a couple weeks, he's progressed, and his technique, his boxing looks good, much better. Yeah, it's all about output.
Well, why don't you talk about that, Tony? Because you're working with Martin. I believe he's training in his basement. So a lot of the same kind of resources people are working with. So what is it that, when you say you're working with Martin in this capacity, what does that mean?
So for example, all right, it's all boxing-ish, okay? And he'll do his sprawls as well. He's got a heavy bag, but it's not a suspended heavy bag. It's one of those heavy bags that have a base, and he stands up there. So, so we do rounds. He does a warm-up, and then we do rounds, okay? And I started him at 3 minutes, and then 4 minutes. And then his last workout was 6-minute rounds, okay? Here's the thing. Because Martin's at a different stage of life and a different stage of conditioning, his last workout was 6-minute rounds, 1 minute rest in between. But while he's resting, he's still moving. He might be standing in place, but he's moving. He's not sitting down. So the 6-minute rounds, that's your 36 minutes. That's equivalent almost, time-wise to 12 3-minute rounds in boxing. Since he's by himself, the heavy bag's not hitting him back, you're never going to get an exact simulation of what it's like to, be in a spar situation. But I tell him exactly what to do. I call out everything. So I don't, like the warm-up, he's on his own. He's just shadow boxing. But after the warm-up, I tell him jab, cross hook, jab, cross hook, overhand, sprawl, whatever, So he's reacting. His brain has that stimulus, okay? He's not just doing it at random and letting his mind wander. He's reacting to my commands, much as he would be if he had a sparring partner there. And now there's the opening to throw the jab, then he would react to that. Well, since he doesn't have a sparring partner, I, in essence, become his, what's the word? His fake, what do you call that? When it doesn't actually exist?
Girlfriend in Canada is what it is called, I think.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm his cyber sparring partner. I can't think of the word. My brain's shot today. But so it's simulated that way, but he's still responding to commands. Okay. And then again, I throw in the sprawls, because for those people who haven't done sprawls, that'll work you up quick, because you're dropping down and getting back up, dropping down, getting back up. The whole time too, I'm watching his form, making sure his hands stay up, his head, he's moving his head. These are things that you cannot do if you're just following along on somebody's video, or you're doing it on your own, because you're not going to see yourself. You're not even aware. So a lot of times I'll tell Martin, I'll say, watch your hands. Okay. Yep. Thanks. Yep. You pointed it out to me, so you want to So my point is now, he did 6 minute rounds. Our next workout this coming week will be different again, okay? Because I'm assuming he's training during the week as well, obviously. But I never want his body to get so comfortable with this. I want to mix things up. But I do it based on watching his movements. If he's starting to collapse, I'm exaggerating, but if he's falling apart completely, then I know, okay, we've pushed it a little too far. We got to back it up. Okay. So far, we haven't had to do that. His body is adapting to these constant challenges, which is really a good thing. But he was in great shape with the Lucky 13. A lot of this is memory, muscle memory, conditional memory. It's coming back, so that's a good thing.
So are you guys using Skype or Zoom or what?
Yeah, Zoom.
Okay. And does he use his phone or his laptop? He just sets it up somewhere where you can see him good?
His laptop. He has his laptop. Well, okay, so like the first time we did it was kind of experimental because, we had to get all the angles right and this and that. So then what I'll do is I'll move back here, and I'll show him what I want him to do. And then if need be, and then he goes back to his, like this coming week, I don't like his overhand right. Okay. It's no good. So before we even start the conditioning, I'm going to teach him the proper way of doing the overhand right. We got to work on that before he starts his conditioning phase. All right. Doesn't help to stop everything while you're doing your conditioning and then, have him cool down in essence. So this is not to make him a champion boxer. That's not his point. He just wants to get him in great shape again. So let's do it and kill two birds with one stone. Let's do it and learn how to box at the same time. Do it the right way. Not like, aerobic boxing or whatever they call it, cardio boxing, where it's just terrible form. Why bother? Do it the right way. And then you'll have lasting benefits. That's my theory on it.
Yeah, I'm always a believer in learning a new skill. Like to me, it's not, I wouldn't want to just work out just for the sake of fitness or aesthetics. To me, it's like, I want to learn a new skill. I want to learn how to get stronger. I want to learn, how to get my wind better, how to get faster, how to get more athletic, learn techniques. To me, the learning is the most fun part. The fitness is just a byproduct of that.
Yeah, and I agree. And if you don't do things right, like I remember when the cardio boxing or cardio kickboxing came out, man, the form was so horrible. I used to advise people, don't do these kind of classes. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get injured. It will save you energy. It will save you time by doing everything properly. I'm like you, Nico. If I'm going to do something, I want to do it right. Even like I can tell if somebody's been trained properly, even when they're just goofing around. Okay. Like if they just put your hands up, and they put their hands up in like a goofy way. I realize no matter how fit they are, no matter how strong they are, and we don't know the reason behind their strength. It could be artificial, but I know, okay, this person wasn't trained elitely. No big deal if they don't care, but to me, I care. I want everybody to do things like you want it to be done. Learn it the right way, and it makes it not only more enjoyable, but it makes it more efficient as well.
Well, in the case with boxing too, I mean, your life could be on the line with it too. I mean, it has a real world consequence. There's some skills that, I don't cross country skiing or like actually when you were talking about guys who look fit, but then failed to perform, I was thinking I did a rock climbing class many years ago. I loved it. I enjoyed it. But the instructor had this story. There's this, I think it's in Wisconsin. It's called Devil's Lake or something like that. I can't remember, but it's a place where a lot of rock climbers go. And there's this one section of rock where they were setting up to climb. And when he was setting up, these two younger guys who were really ripped, really buff, came up, and he looked, he's like, oh, these guys are going to fly up this mountain. And they couldn't. They got stuck. They couldn't make the climb. They struggled at it. They kept fighting at it, and they couldn't get to it. And then he saw some older climbers, guys who had experience and skill, just shoot right up, and to me, I've seen that over and over again. I remember I had a high school classmate who was super fit. I mean, he actually was like a fitness model at some points, just a bodybuilder, looked great. But he assumed because he had these amazing biceps that he could do everything better than the rest of us. And I was on the swim team in high school, and one time we were at Lake Michigan, and there's a section, there's a lot of sections called the rocks where you can swim off, and there's buoys out there to tell you like don't go any further. So we're like, oh, I'll race you to the buoy, and come back. Well, that was a big mistake on a couple levels. He just made it. I remember racing him out there. I touched the buoy. I turn around. I get about halfway back, and I realize I don't know where this guy's at anymore. So I kind of stop and start tread watering. And I look, and he's hanging. He's clinging onto the buoy because he's gassed himself out. Because he had no technique. And that's, a lot of people. So like in every environment, whether it's climbing, swimming, fighting, you quite often you're working against yourself without proper technique. So the fitness alone will not do it. And then like cases where you're swimming somewhere, or if you're in a fight, it could cost you your life.
Well, that's true. And again, let's make this one thing perfectly clear. You have to find a balance, and everybody is different in their life. I mean, some guys just don't, or gals even don't really want to learn to fight. Then that's fine. They just want to be in shape. But for those that want to learn to fight, part of fighting, you have to be in shape. It won't really. I think I told you the story about the producer or the director of the movie Hard Times with Charles Bronson. Charles Bronson looked great, but the guy said we had to film him in 45-second stretches. That was it, because his conditioning was so poor because he was a lifelong smoker. Okay, so he didn't have the gas. All right, even though he looked good, he was chiseled and cut and all of that. And he, I don't remember the movie too well now, but I think he had boxing training at point in his younger days in his life. But yeah, he didn't have the conditioning to go. So if you do want to fight, you do have to have that conditioning. But again, it's a balancing act. Like Joe just mentioned, you can be kind of fit, but yet fail at your endeavor. So it's a balancing act. You have to have both. Now you just do. That's how I was always taught, and I think time has proven that.
Yeah, people will fool you with what you think is this stud, and then it turns out they fall apart when they need to apply themselves. I mean, even Tony, you and I worked out a couple of years ago to Planet Fitness, and if you recall, there was that heavier set guy who was just so supple. I mean, he put his leg like a ballerina over his head, hanging on basically the power rack. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Black guy. Like you look at the guy, you would think the guy's hasn't done any workout in his life, and obviously he's committed himself to this stretching, going back, and he was middle aged. So I wouldn't have thought that just by looking at him, that he was basically, as flexible as probably a wushu, master. But people surprise you. So don't ever underestimate your opponent. I guess that's the other lesson to take away.
Yeah. I've always said that. Everybody I would go up against or see or something, I always assume they're the toughest man that ever lived. That's just the way it has to be. You take somebody for granted and you start making mistakes. I mean, you can get lucky. I mean, we all would like to have that. We all want to have, if there is such a thing as luck, we want it on our side, good luck, and bad luck on their side. But yeah, no, you can't underestimate. My grandfather was a handful even in his older days, sick and all of that, because he knew how to fight, he knew how to box. So, to look at him, you'd have thought, he's just an old man, but wrong. Well, no, he was an old man, but he wasn't just an old man. But yeah, I just always wanted to have, a combination of certain kind of fitness, but I wanted to be able to fight and hold my own against anybody. But I never was like Joe's fitness model friend. I never cared about bodybuilding. I still think that's a very difficult sport. It really is. They work out hard, they diet, they do their thing, and that's something I could never do. I don't want to live my life like that, where I'm a slave to my body, counting calories all the time and shit. So I want to be able to eat what I want and do that, but I still want to have some strength. Look at you guys. When we filmed that video a couple weeks ago for BJJ fanatics, you guys were all looking good, man. And we were the oldest ones in the group, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty old. Martin was even older. So yeah,
Well, I mean,
Bruce is
the
looking
oldest of the old, I
phenomenal.
think. But,
Yeah, Bruce is looking great. So I
oh
agree.
yeah, no, that's. I'm getting a text here from the caretaker. I'm letting her know about this episode here. Yeah, it's just very difficult to tell some people because they want to take. I mean, look, everybody's entitled to do whatever they want to do with their own body and their own life. My thing is, especially now as I'm older, whatever you do, you want it to be long lasting as possible. Therefore, I could have been even stronger and even faster if I did performance enhancing drugs. My peak would have been much more than what it was, but I am absolutely satisfied with what my lifts were, what my speed was, being a drug-free athlete. So that's all that matters to me now. Okay. I don't have to look back and say to myself, well, I wonder what I would have done if I was clean. Now I could sit there and say, well, I wonder what I would have done if I was dirty. And you can pretty much do the math and figure that out. So
Well,
yeah,
there's case studies, Tony. I mean, there's how many professional, bodybuilders that have literally been hospitalized with all these hosts of issues and physically, or I mean, go on YouTube. You can scroll through dozens of them. Guys that were world class in that particular endeavor, or pro wrestlers, or which they take their own trauma and damage from other reasons, but stuff takes its toll doing those types of chemicals.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. And as again, if that's what somebody wants to do, that's their life. Okay. But for me, I don't want that. So even now, I've learned because of my situation with my mother and everything, and how not only it affects me so much mentally, it drains you. I can't get in a routine to get to the gym and put in the kind of lifts or workouts that I want. So I've learned, instead of beating myself up about it, I just have to accept the place that I'm at right now, physically, and not add to any of my mental anguish. When things finally clear up around here, then I'll be able to embark on another, phase of my life where I can dedicate 6 months to strength training, and in those 6 months, I'll be able to, roughly 6 months, I'll be able to get my strength up to levels that I think will be, remarkable for me at this point in my life. And that's all that matters. But that's got to wait. I can't do it right now.
You kind of mentioned about getting balance right in your training, kind of in other aspects, and longevity. And I kind of wanted to bring that in too, because one of the things I struggle with is, you want to push yourself as much as you can, but there's also that limit of, am I going to be damaging myself long term? And I think especially when you're in combat sports, or if I mean, basically we're training we have an endeavor here where the whole point of it is to give each other athletic injuries. I mean, obviously you don't want to, but that's the skill. I mean, you're trying to cooperatively do it, but you're dancing a very fine line, of how do I be a good training partner? But ultimately the skills we're practicing, are things that could, in any other circumstance, be really bad. And so that's one of the things I struggle with. Like, when I've been to Jason's gym a few times grappling, because they use gis, my fingers are tore up, and I start to think, at my age, do I start thinking about, like, what's I've seen some of them, they can't even close a fist, guys who are dedicated to jujitsu and have been doing it for a lot of times, their hands are so tore up, they're always taping their fingers and taping things up. And it's like, gosh, I mean, if you lose the use of your fingers, or like, let's say you need to hit somebody and close a fist, there's fine motor skills that you might have, hobbies outside of it. And so I guess my thing is, the other thing is struggling, or even like weightlifting, you can push yourself with lifting to the point where you're doing damage that you may not come back from, just cumulative little micro damages over the course of your career. And so finding a balance with that and longevity too, because I know a lot of people who've like hit really great heights, but then they're a wreck for the last few decades of their life, hobbling around. And that's a tough place to be as well.
Yeah, I mean, I have injuries that you know, I don't know of any athlete that took it to the highest levels that in any hard sport that doesn't have some sort of injury. I just I don't know. The key is how long can you delay the onset of these injuries? Some get snuffed out in the prime of their life because of their injuries. It's it's just a decision that everyone has to make. Uh, Thankfully, you have options in your life. All right, you don't have to train to be an NFL player or a world champion boxer or MMA guy or a wrestler, this and that. You can just be a hobbyist, which fits for some people. I mean, you go to the health clubs, go to the gyms. Um, you're not going to find a bunch of prospering or promising Mr. Americas in these gyms that I go to. They're just people every day that are just trying to look a little better or feel a little better. Nobody's putting a gun to their head saying you got to train for the next Mr. Olympia. No. I think some of the problem in martial arts schools is that they push that on them. You got to compete, you got to compete, you got to compete. And I know this for a fact because I, through the years, have gotten many emails from people, throughout the country and actually throughout the world. They're like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to compete. I'm just looking to work out, and I feel pressured to compete in something that my heart's not in it. Uh, that's not good. You know, and listen, you can go to boxing gyms, even in Chicago, and not compete. Okay, the executive boxing or whatever label they want to put on it, you're not compelled to compete. People go there just to get a workout in, and boxing is still a great workout. Hitting the heavy bag, moving around, jumping ropes, shadow boxing, all of that. Um, so again, too, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with competing. We've trained competitors, champions, but you got to let the person be free, to make that decision if they want to do it. Well,
I'll chime in on a question because I can't stay the whole podcast, but I think it brings up a good point of, it's the New Year's now. People are looking at the resolutions. And, one thing I'm hearing today is you always have to understand and accept like what your resources are, what your possible limitations are, what your parameters, because everybody loves to shoot for the moon, right? Especially New Year's resolutions. And maybe it's important to understand, what is realistic, what you can scale to.
yeah, dose of reality, exactly. Yeah, and I think that's why you have to have the correct guidance. You have to have a coach or a teacher or whatever the label is, that will be honest and upfront. But you also have to know that they may not know you that well, so don't let them also limit you to a sense where they're holding you back. My thing is, I would never promise anybody to be the best in the world necessarily, but I would say if you train with me, I'll make you the best you can possibly be. Okay. And that may be enough to be the best in the world or may not, but if I can get you or anybody else to be the best that they can possibly be, my job, I feel as a coach and as a friend, is complete. That's all I can do is bring out the best in people, or at least try. But there are coaches who do. I've seen it, or teachers even that just blatantly lie. We've all seen it. Okay, they'll promise you all this pie in the sky stuff that's just not feasible, and people, they're not necessarily gullible. They live. They're desperate. They need that answer. They need that confirmation of what's in their mind. So, for example, I'll just make something off the top of my head. You're 300 pounds. You want to get down to 150 pounds. That can be done. It's been done many, 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 many times, but it's not done in 2 months. Okay, it's not done in 3 months. So sometimes people will promise you things. They'll promise to deliver things that just aren't possible, and then you lose the motivation, or you may actually get hurt in the process. not just psychologically, but physically, shooting for the impossible dream. Whereas if they would have just said, look, you can have that happen, but it's going to take, you know, a longer time than you think. I get that with the Tri-C program. How long will it take me? You know, everybody's different, man. I don't want to lie and say, oh yeah, in a month you'll be the greatest. That's bullshit. You know, it takes a long time. You got to work hard. So I think there's a combination of finding an honest coach or instructor, whatever you want to call them. But in order for him to be honest or her to be honest, they have to get to know you, and know your mind, know your heart, and then you have to make it. You have to make it work, and you have to build that relationship with your coach, to where you two are on the same level mentally, and he or she's in your corner. That's what I think.
That's great. I gotta head out, guys. I'm gonna listen to it on the other side though. So it's
Happy
great.
New Year, buddy.
Happy New Year to all you.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Absolutely. Great one. Bye.
Have a good one.
Well, Brian is another one. When he first started, when I first met him, Brian was built like a stick. He was real thin, real skinny, and he built himself where he was never like a giant man, but he was very well muscled, you know, quick, athletic, and he became a hell of a grappler there. Yeah, you just want to make it the best that you can be, and sometimes life gets in the way. And in the scheme of, after you're like old and done on your deathbed, we'll never really know if any of us actually did make it, you know, reach our limits. Who knows? Maybe if we took a different approach or we had somebody else's input. But if you set, at least I'll speak for myself, if I set goals, concrete goals, I want to lift X amount. I want to be able to beat all these guys in a certain amount of time. If I set those goals, which I did in my life, and I met all those goals, I met every goal and I exceeded them. So could I have been better? Yeah, but I made my goals in my life. So I'm happy about that aspect of it. Now, the bigger question, was it worth it? I can't tell you that yet. I still have hopefully another, few decades to live. Was it worth it financially? No. It's been a disaster financially, but was it worth it in other ways? Yeah, I can't answer that right now. Yes and no. We'll see. And ask me in 20 years, we'll still be doing the podcast.
We may
It'll
still
be
be doing this
holograms.
episode. Yeah.
It'll be a hologram by then, right?
Yeah, you'll be a cyborg or just like a head in a jar that we'll just bring up to the mic.
Well, the thing is, you have to understand, why do I do things? Or why, this is not just about me. I'm asking everybody out there, why do you do things? What do you want out of those things? Do you want adulation? Do you want health? Do you want financial? Do you want stability of some sort? What is your motivation behind all of that? And then realize that whatever it is that you're doing should be sustainable. Otherwise, it'll just be a flash in the pan. So like Usain Bolt, I mentioned him earlier, fastest man of all time. 9.58, I believe, 100 meters, or 9.56. He'll never, ever do that again. Okay? He did it, though, and it'll be a record for a long time, more than likely, but he'll never do it again, right? And you know that going in. As an athlete, you know that you're only going to have your skills at a peak for a certain time. Some people don't know that, believe it or not. Some people don't have the athletic mindset, and they want to enter into a world of athleticism thinking that they're going to continue, to increase the rest of their life or da-da-da-da-da. They don't get it that, there's windows here. But when it comes to knowledge, if that's what you want to do, become a coach, let's say, you can continue to get better. You can continue to gain knowledge, gain insight into human beings and people, and improve your athletic ability. Not your athletic ability, your coaching ability. So that's something too to look at. What is your goal? What is it? Like losing weight. So it should be a lifestyle change. And yes, you should be able to maintain a a body weight within 10, 15 pounds for the rest of your life. That's something that you can do. So but I guess what I'm getting at is most of the people who are making New Year's resolutions know what they are, know if they're sustainable. And if they aren't, that's fine. But know that if it's not sustainable, I gotta train properly. I gotta put all my effort into this to make it happen while it can happen before time runs out. That's, I guess, what I'm getting at.
Yeah, it seems like that's with most things in life. There's a window when you have the ability to do it, and when that window runs out, you got to change your plans.
I think so. But to me, in my life, outside of the athletics, I always knew that there was a window. But in other things in life, it never dawned on me that there was that window, and until as I started to get older, then I started realizing, wow, certain things that I wanted, I can't have them now. Okay, it's too late. And you can't turn back the hands of time. So I learned that the hard way. So now my future is in suspended animation right now because of my mother. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So I try not to think about it, all right? Because it's completely out of my hands. Having a caretaker is out of my hands. I don't know if the caretaker will show up tomorrow. I don't know when I can get her in a nursing home. Okay, I can't just, it's not like going to a Walmart and dropping her off. Okay, so much is out of my hands. And then then I have to worry about my life. What's going to happen next? What's the next stage? I don't know. Joe, and you know that I've been making plans, but they're all on hold. I can't do anything. And my plans involve other people. I need help. Can't do it on my own. So, yeah, we don't know. You never know. But I have learned from this experience with my mother, and I don't ever want any other human being to ever have to go through this, because of the isolation, because of being the sole caretaker here, me, not having any aid, any help, family-wise or anything, because there is no family. It's tough. It's a tough situation. So I was just mentioning to my friend Scott today, you guys met Scott. I know as of now, I could never enter into a relationship with a woman again, that if she had this same situation like my mother, I couldn't go through this again. This has damaged me irreparably, and I will never want to put myself through that again. Okay, ever. So therefore, I won't have anybody on my end to help me with a woman, let's say. So I'd have to make sure that a woman would have someone there also to help, meaning family, children, or something that could also step in, so it's not on me exclusively, okay? And conversely, since I don't have anybody on my end to take care of me, I would never put a woman in the position that I'm in right now. I would never want a woman to be completely 24-hour caregiver for me. I would never allow that to happen, ever, ever. So, these are things that I've taken away from this whole scenario, that I will never put myself in this position, and I'll never want to put anyone else in a position as well. So I have to make plans for the future based on that criteria. This is something that I never thought I'd ever have to do, even 10, 15, 20 years ago. Who thought this? Who thinks like that? But it's a fact of life.
Yeah, and I think when you're younger too, you don't, and this is in a lot of ways, you kind of feel a little bit more, maybe not completely invulnerable, but a lot more self-reliant. And but you realize at some point in your life, you're going to need your family around you and having those connections, whether it's friends, family, community. You're better off with that. I mean, we all need that at some point. So keeping that kind of in being conscious of that need, I think, is important. And maybe you don't realize it when you're younger necessarily. I think of how many friendships I kind of just let go on the fly, because I had a lot of people around me. But talking about windows of opportunities, I mean, as you get older and depending what kind of job you work, you don't meet as many people. So all of a sudden those, when I was younger, whether it was in school or the type of job I had, I was meeting people all the time and there was a lot of turnover. So, someone would get another job or move away and I would just kind of not be deliberate about staying in touch with them. And because my brain wasn't thinking, oh, my life scenario is going to change where I'm not going to have as many people around me, and so things that you don't realize the value of certain things, and sometimes until it's too late. And something like that is something where it's something I always have to work on as far as, relationships, whether they're family or friends. That's just one of those things like that. Absolutely. And on the converse side, I feel like there's always a counterpoint. There's no like one answer for anything because, there are certain windows that I remember when I was younger training. I started training grappling it was probably in my 20s. And I remember thinking there were people, it's like, well, you can only train in your 20s when a lot of the fighters at the time, this is like the first generation of MMA fighters and wrestlers. There were no fighters in their 30s at that time. If there were, or they're about to end their career. It's almost like rock stars, like the first generation of rock stars. They never thought the Rolling Stones were going to continue to play into their 70s, and not that people are competing at a high level. I mean, there's no one who's going to be winning a championship, in their 40s. But now, I mean, there are people who are in their 50s getting their black belt, because they stuck with it. They took, I remember again in my 20s, someone tell me, oh, it's going to take you like, it takes some of these fighters 10 years to get. And I'm like, 10 years, that seemed like an eternity. When I was 20, 10 years, I mean, literally that's 50% of my lifespan at that point. It's like, no way would I commit anything to 10 years, to do, unless you're going to become a medical doctor or something. And now looking back, and I was like, holy cow. I mean, I've done that many times over, just living my life. So I guess I'm kind of making a confused point is that, don't necessarily limit yourself. Like, I don't think I'll ever achieve what my full potential as a grappler or a martial artist, but doesn't mean a lot of people, like a lot of my other friends outside of this world that we live in, would never think to do this, would never think to get on the mat or train. I'm too old, I'm middle-aged. They put these artificial limits on themselves. Now, physically, they probably are more limited than I am because they haven't trained their whole life, but it's just like, you may not be able to be great at something. It doesn't mean, don't limit yourself. Don't put artificial or societal limits on yourself. There's so many things that, you think when you're middle aged, you just got to start, putting on a smoking jacket and drinking scotch and worrying about your stock exchange or whatever. But it's not true. You can be doing a lot of things that we associate it with youth. Again, maybe not as great, but just because you're middle aged doesn't mean this isn't something you can't start, that you can't get better than when you were. I mean, I'll make this observation about myself as though, even though I'm not, I don't think I'm as fit as I was when I was younger. I definitely think like I could kick my 20-year-old's ass. Like if I met myself and it's some kind of like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure thing, and I got into it with my younger self because of the things I know now. You've trained me to be a better, smarter grappler. There's aspects to my striking and things that are much better, I know now, than when I was younger. So I might have had better conditioning and maybe I'd outlast myself, but I think I've gotten better in other aspects, kind of to your point about knowledge that, I can compensate in other areas. So that's just one thing as far as that goes, as far as certain windows close, but don't make assumptions about what you can and can't do. Try some things out. And I was going to make the other point about windows too, and this kind of dovetails into the whole Tri-C thing. And another kind of, I guess I'm kind of making like a regret list of things I didn't do is that, not training with the people when I was younger that I had an opportunity to do. Your coaches aren't always going to be there, and I think maybe the listeners of this podcast are maybe starting to get into it, but like, when I think I can't remember how old I was, probably I was pushing 30s when I met you. I don't remember now. I have to do the math, but like somewhere in my brain, I was like, well, I can always get back to train with it. I can always get back to train with them. It's like I didn't understand that. No, every coach out there has got a shelf life, whether they move away or whether they get injured or get hit by a train, you don't know what's going to happen. Nothing is guaranteed. So in some ways, if you're, and I guess this is my message to people, like you said, the people who sent emails and said, oh, well, I wish you weren't shutting down the Tri-C because eventually I'd like to do it. It's like, why are you waiting? This is it. Like there's no guarantee that Tri-C or not, Coach Tony's still going to be coaching a year from now. We don't know. So if you're interested in this stuff, even if you're concerned about your fitness or whatever, you can still learn some things. You can start, this is a perfect time. This is the beginning of the year. It might not be, you might not have done the perfect prep work to get in this, but things can adjust. Oh, actually, I was going to tell you, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I didn't tell you guys, but I'm starting EMT school tomorrow. So that happened. Yeah, like I was supposed to do it in June, but an opportunity came up. They said someone dropped out of class and they're like, do you want to start Monday? Now I've got there's some vaccine requirements, so I may still not be in, but it looks like I'm starting Monday. So as far as I know, like I said,
How long is
I
the
was
course?
6 months. So I'll go from January through June, till the middle of June, but I'd rather do that than be in school during the summer. So that I basically had to make an on-the-fly decision. An email came to me and it said, send us a reply by 2 p.m. We're closing down for the holiday. Let us know if you want to in Monday. And so I just said, I just pulled the trigger, and I was not, and like I said, I just was not mentally ready to be starting school, and I guess my point being is that, like, don't wait, you're not guaranteed, to get that spot. You're not guaranteed that your coach or whatever resource you want is going to be here, and there's so many aspects of your life like that. So I guess I just want to encourage people to, whatever your age is or whatever you think that window is, I guess you can extend some windows more than you think, and other windows might be there shorter than you want. So, don't make assumptions about those windows, I guess, is me trying to summarize all my rambling observations here.
No, I think you'll do fine. But yes, you're right. And it's a double-edged sword. So let's say you want to study American history. Well, I'm sure that there'll be schools that you could enroll in, perhaps. So eventually you'll be able to study American history. But if you wanted to study with a particular professor, that may not be an option. Or something could happen in your life, that prevents you from now studying the American history that you wanted. So yeah, I think you need to, I think that's and I guess every year people with the New Year's resolution, many times they say they'll start off, they'll join the gym, this and that, but then they don't stick with it. But you have those that do. So you have to look at those people and, really give them, an attaboy saying, go, I'm glad you stuck with it. Let's keep it going. Yeah, for me, like I said, mine, we all have regrets. Anybody who will sit there and say, nope, I have no regrets. I got to call them a liar on that one, because, we all have done things we shouldn't have done or could have went in a different direction. Everybody. But it doesn't mean that you wouldn't do your life the same way again. It's okay to accept some regret. Okay. Because there's certain things that you can probably fix. There's others that you just, can't, because it's age related, let's say. But, if there's things that you want to do, do them. Just quit talking about it and do it. And I guess that's part of the frustration with me too, regarding the Tri-C, or just people that want to train, or claim they want to train, and then they don't, and how many times do you have to answer the same question to the same person, perhaps, you're not going to train. We already know this now. Okay. Because if you wanted to, you'd have done it already. So you just have to it's kind of cold hearted, but you got to move on from people like that, because all it'll do is frustrate you. Now, especially with something like the Tri-C, where it's a limited thing. It's not like I want to buy one of your downloads. My downloads are always going to be there. With the Tri-C, when you say, all right, I'm going to join, you're now taking that opportunity from somebody else, okay, who may be sincere. And I have to tell the other person, I'm sorry, but Joe Blow said he's going to sign up in 3 days. And that's the last spot I got, because I don't have enough time to take more students. So now Joe Blow blows me off. And, now do I go back to the other guy and say, hey, okay, now the opportunity's there? Maybe the other guy feels, well, too bad now, okay. But shit like that's happened, where I've been strung along. And you get just tired of it. I'm not going to do that anymore, especially now in this day and age, when more than ever, worldwide, remote learning is the thing. Remote learning is happening. Remote meetings, remote is universally accepted, in not just this, but in the business world as well. So there is no more excuses. So then I'm done. One more month. That's it. The end of the month, January 31st. Come February 1st, you won't be able to add it to your shopping cart. So, but yeah, even now in life with me, I wax nostalgic a little bit. I look back and think so many of my coaches or teachers, music or what have you, they're dead. They're gone. Everybody's gone. And my mom will pass away too, and unless I go first. So many of my friends have passed away. You know that, Joe. More so than even Nico. You've met some of my friends that are no longer here. Many of my guys have met my friends that are gone. And especially around the holidays, it's a really Christmas holiday. It's really tough because, Johnny Lira died the 9th. My friend Cowboy died 3 days later on the 12th. My dad died on the 13th, the very next day, all within 4 days. My dog died 2 years ago on December 13th. My grandmother died many years ago, December 29th, and on and on. So the holidays, I hit one of my best buddies, retired Chicago cop, Jerry Cronin, dies Christmas Day, 2007. So, the holidays for me, for example, are just not a joyous time. I hate them. I don't like them because it's full of death for me. Come January, though, it's supposed to be a new beginning, right? With so many of my friends, we kept a running tab since December 9th, just from December 9th, 2012 until now. I've lost 61 people, 61 in 11 years, or in 9 years. And that's not counting the people who have died before. So, you're right when you say people may not be here. And that's not just about training, but just friends, family. If you have something to say to them, say it. Like now, it's pointless for me to say anything to my mother. She's not my mother anymore. She doesn't know me. So if there was ever anything I needed to say to her or did say to her, sadly, it's forgotten. You don't want to have that happen either. So show people, let them know your feelings if you can. It's probably my New Year's resolution is just to try to reach out as much as I can to people that are left via email or text or whatever, because I really can't go see them yet. What about you, Nico? You have a New Year's resolution?
Yeah, I agree with you, Tony. I think that's a good resolution, man, to reach out to people. As you guys know, I'm reclusive and I don't get out, and I'm not in contact with society a lot of times. And that's a problem. I need to be more in contact with my friends and family and reach out to them more. So I'm kind of on the same page with you with that in this coming new year.
My whole problem with me reaching out is like, I almost feel like a panhandler in a way because I can't bring anything joyous. I'm down in the dumps. The situation with her is just never better. It's always worse. So I'm not me anymore, okay? I'm not the old Tony, right? I haven't been for years. It's beating me down. So that's kind of like why I don't want to dump on too many people anymore with my problems. I want them, I think we talked about this once before about Gene Kelly, the great dancer who was on The Tonight Show back when Michael Jackson was doing the moon dance or the moonwalk. And Gene Kelly said, well, that's nothing new. We all did that. That's a age-old move. And then Johnny said, would you demonstrate it for us? And he's like, no. See, Gene Kelly probably could have done it, but Gene wanted everybody to remember how he was, how he used to be in his prime, not some 75-year-old or whatever, however old he was when he was on the show doing the move. And that's how I feel right now. I don't reach out to some people because I don't want them to remember me like this. I don't want them to say 5 years from now, man, Tony, I remember when Tony called me or, he was so down, he was so upset, he was so nervous. I don't want them to remember me like that, So That's part of the reason why I don't reach out. But I've got to change all that. I have to. What about you, Joe? What's your resolution? You can't get
Ah,
any better looking than you are right now. You know.
Right. When you've peaked out like that, that's the problem, you know. So, but I mean, honestly, I've been doing. It's funny when you guys put it like that. It's hard to not sound trivial because as far as being deliberate and going out and being contact and maintaining relationships, I mean, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. When I was a kid, I just let stuff go, you know. And so that's been kind of. I think it's a good reminder. It's not something I deliberately thought about for this year, but I'm definitely adding that to my list. I think is a very probably the most important reminder I can have. You know, but yeah, no, I've got a lot. Like I said, for me, it's getting through that EMT class, man. I'm looking at. I'm quite intimidated. Like I said, I was not ready for it to start up. So if I can make it through that 6 months, that'll be definitely something I can put a stake, a flag in the ground that I completed it. So I've got to get through that. I think is my big one for the year.
How many classes per week?
Just two, but it's from 6 to 10 twice a week. So like I said, I don't know what the workload is in between classes. It's like I said, I'm just, yeah, I haven't done any of the prep work. So not that there was work to do before that, but I've already got a stethoscope ready. I got that from one of my fire buddies because I needed that, and there's going to be a uniform. So there's a lot to, like I said, there's a lot of logistics that I'm already anxious about. That I'm behind the 8 ball a little bit to get that going, but I'm very excited. I think it's an important skill set for, you know, in everybody, honestly, to be more knowledgeable how to handle medical emergencies. And so I want that in my toolbox, and we'll see where that leads.
I actually train an EMT paramedic. Um, he's not from here though. He lives in another state. But yeah, it's a good skill set. Matter of fact, maybe one day the three of us, if I can work around his schedule, do a Zoom. You could talk to him. You can meet him, virtually.
Well, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah,
I'm gonna
I'll
start
ask
having
him.
questions for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll ask him. That's all I can do is ask. No harm in asking. But no, it's just we all have our little things. I generally don't make like resolutions per se. I make like I hope this happens kind of thing. Like let's say, oh, I hope I meet the right woman, or things like that are a little bit more esoteric, a little bit more out of your direct hands. But I try to just live my life every day to the max that I can be. So I want to stay in shape as best I can. You know, keep keep things going here. As best I can, stuff like that. But you know, those are things that I have a little more direct control over. Meeting somebody or whatever, that's a little out of my hands, especially now since I can't really go out. So it's difficult. But anyway, I guess on that note, we should probably wrap it up. She's been quiet upstairs here, so that's good. I don't know what I'll run into when I get upstairs, but my next resolution, I guess here's my first resolution. I got to go outside and shovel the snow. That's going to happen as soon as we're done with this podcast. That's my New Year's resolution. Last year, I don't know if people know this, they might not remember, but my car was literally stuck in the ice in my driveway for 6 weeks. I could not leave the house. Okay. Scott had COVID. So he was my only friend with a car around here. So I did no shopping. I did nothing. I couldn't get out. And then one day, well, you came over, Joe. You tried to help me push that car out. It wasn't moving. Okay. So, new tires, blah, blah, blah. The other day, man, she got stuck again, but I was able to get it out, thankfully. I don't know about today. We'll see if that car can get out. Because if that car can't get out again, I can't do this anymore. Okay. That'll be it. Then I'll literally be, this will be the last year that I can live here. I will have to move because of that. I cannot afford to not be able to get out of my own driveway. And like I said, I don't own this house. I just rent. And as you know, the driveway is gravel and it gets divots in it. And all of a sudden you got, 3 inches of solid ice that you're on. Can't get that car off of that. So, yeah, let's hope that I can get that car out. So I'm going to start the car up, let it warm up, shovel everything, and then try to at least pull it out of the driveway and hope that my mom's not freaking out while I'm, outside. That's the other thing. So you get like this.
But no, I think we had a
Awesome.
great episode. Yeah, I think this is a great way to kick off the year. It was good to have a new Nico, and definitely was cool having Brian join. So hopefully we'll have more people jump in the new year. So look forward to a lot of good episodes coming up.
Sounds good. Thank you guys and everybody out there. Once again, Happy New Year. See you next week.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.